Rachel Carter didn't expect to start her Tuesday with a confrontation. The sky was still a little gray with early fog as she stepped out of her car, the morning quiet broken only by birdsong and the distant hum of lawnmowers. She adjusted the collar of her beige blazer, grabbed her coffee, and glanced at the meter. Still green. She had 12 minutes left. She smiled to herself. Ever since leaving her job as a federal prosecutor to run her bookstore in this small town, life had slowed in the best ways. Parking meters, morning joggers, sleepy coffee shops. She welcomed the calm. But as she turned toward the store, a voice rang out behind her, sharp and commanding. "Ma'am, you can't park here." Rachel turned to see a man in a dark blue police uniform, mirrored sunglasses reflecting the morning sun. He looked like he'd walked out of a cop drama, tall, broad-shouldered, and full of swagger. The nameplate on his chest read, Daniels. "I've got 12 minutes on the meter," she said calmly. He didn't bother checking. "You're blocking a red curb." Rachel blinked. She turned, then bent slightly. The curb behind her tire was clearly yellow, not red. "That's a loading zone, not a fire lane." Daniel stepped forward, not even looking. He already had the ticket half written. "I said you're blocking a red curb. Do you want to argue with me in front of your store or in court?" Rachel's brows furrowed. "I'm not arguing, officer. I'm pointing out the curb isn't red." He smiled without warmth. "You raising your voice?" "No, I can tow the car, too," he interrupted, flicking the pen back into his chest pocket. "Want me to call it in?" Rachel stood her ground. "There's no need for threats. I know the law. I used to prosecute people for abusing it." That made Daniels pause. He tilted his head, studying her now with a bit more interest, and a lot more condescension. "Prosecutor, huh? Must have been a while ago if you're running a bookstore now." Rachel felt the sting, but she didn't react. "You're writing a false citation. I'll challenge it. And win." He handed her the ticket anyway, then leaned in a little too close. "Good luck with that. But you keep talking like that in this town, lady, you'll find life gets a lot harder." She said nothing as he walked back to his patrol car, the door slamming with finality. He peeled off down the street like he had somewhere important to be. But Rachel stood still, staring at the yellow curb, her jaw clenched. She wasn't angry because of the ticket. She was angry because he thought he could get away with it. By lunchtime, she'd shaken it off, mostly. The bookstore, Paper Prose, was her sanctuary. It had high shelves, cozy corners, and a kettle always humming in the back. Locals drifted in and out, asking for mysteries or children's books or advice on the best book club wine pairing. But the ticket nagged at her. Later that afternoon, her friend Tamara, who ran the cafe next door, dropped by holding a tray of croissants. "Guess who got another ticket this morning?" Tamara said, setting the tray down with a sigh. Rachel turned. "You?" "Yep. Parked in front of my own business for 7 minutes. Officer Daniels said I was obstructing the sidewalk. My back bumper was maybe 6 inches over." Rachel's stomach turned. "He wrote you up too?" Tamara nodded. "Third time this month, it's always him." Rachel sat down slowly. "He wrote me one this morning. Claimed I was parked in front of a red curb. It was yellow." Tamara's eyebrows lifted. "That sounds familiar." They talked for a few minutes. As they did, Rachel's thoughts moved from irritation to curiosity. She hadn't practiced law in a few years, but her instincts hadn't dulled. That night, she opened her laptop at the kitchen table and pulled up the town's public records portal. She searched Daniels, expecting maybe a handful of citations. What she found stunned her. Dozens of complaints, some dismissed, some unresolved, all pointing to the same pattern. Overreach, intimidation, selective enforcement. A single mom who said he followed her home after a traffic stop. A Latina business owner who claimed he threatened to shut her store down over a noise complaint. A teenage boy who was handcuffed for jaywalking. Rachel leaned back, eyes narrowing. This wasn't about a parking ticket. This was about power. And Officer Daniels? He was wielding his badge like a weapon. She stared at the citation he left her on the table. It wasn't just a piece of paper. It was the fuse. And Daniels had just lit it. The next morning, Rachel didn't waste time. By 8 a.m., her laptop was open, a steaming mug of dark roast at her elbow, and a spreadsheet slowly taking shape. Across the top, name, date, incident, location, outcome, complaint filed. She wasn't building a legal case yet, but she was building a pattern. And every time she typed in a new row, Officer Daniels' name appeared again and again like clockwork. Tamara had given her two names, Monica, the florist down the block, and Cheryl, who ran a yoga studio 3 streets over. Both women, both small business owners, and both with stories nearly identical to Rachel's. When Rachel visited Monica that afternoon, she was met with a wary look. "Let me guess," Monica said, before Rachel had even introduced herself. "You're here about Daniels." Rachel smiled gently. "He gave me a bogus ticket yesterday. You too?" Monica scoffed. 3 this year. 1 for unauthorized signage, because I had a chalkboard outside my shop. He said it blocked pedestrian traffic. Rachel looked at the sidewalk outside. "Your board is thinner than my coffee table." Monica nodded. "Exactly. The city allows it. But arguing with him only made things worse. I just pay the fines and try to stay off his radar." Rachel jotted down everything. "I understand. But if I'm collecting these stories, would you be willing to write a statement?" Monica hesitated. "You think something will come of it?" "I don't think," Rachel said. "I know, if enough of us speak up." Cheryl was even more direct. "He threatened to cite one of my clients for loitering. She was stretching outside before class." Rachel had to stop herself from laughing, not because it was funny, but because it was so absurd. By the end of the week, Rachel had collected 11 first-hand accounts, 5 of which had written complaints filed with the city. None had gone anywhere. All were closed without disciplinary action. But it wasn't just hearsay. Rachel had pulled body cam request logs, court appearances, and officer performance reviews. The Freedom of Information Act wasn't just for journalists. It was a tool she knew how to use. And when she couldn't access what she wanted directly, she had old contacts in the legal world who pointed her in the right direction. She noticed a pattern. Daniels's targets were nearly always women. Women alone. Women he believed wouldn't push back. But Rachel wasn't just any woman. That Friday afternoon, while her assistant handled the bookstore's evening crowd, Rachel sat in the back office with a legal pad and a quiet fire building in her chest. She didn't miss the courtroom, but she missed the fight. That night, she typed up a formal complaint. Not the kind that got dismissed with a stamp and a shrug, but one backed with evidence, statements, and a paper trail. She cross-referenced Daniels's patrol reports, attached photographic evidence of curbs, sidewalks, and parking zones, and detailed the inconsistencies in each ticket. Before submitting it, she CC'd it to the city council, the mayor's office, and an old law school friend who now worked at a regional watchdog group. Then she exhaled and hit send. It didn't take long for the retaliation to begin. The next Monday, a uniformed officer appeared at Paper Pros with a clipboard. "Routine fire inspection," he said flatly. Rachel looked around her spotless shop. "Funny, I passed my last inspection 2 months ago." "New initiative," he replied. "Citywide." That same week, a sanitation officer discovered improper trash sorting behind her store, a violation Rachel had never even heard of. A noise complaint followed after her monthly book club ran until 9:10 p.m., just 10 minutes past the posted ordinance limit. Each citation felt petty and yet unmistakably deliberate. Rachel knew exactly who was behind them. But the final straw came Thursday morning. She was walking to her car when she noticed a bright orange boot clamped to her rear wheel. She blinked at it, confused, then furious. A large sticker read, "Violation, court ordered hold." 2 officers stood nearby, one of them smirking. "Miss Carter?" one asked. "We have a court summons for you. Failure to comply with a municipal citation." Rachel took the paperwork without flinching. Her eyes scanned the page. It was from Officer Daniels himself. He'd filed a motion claiming she was obstructing a fire lane and had failed to respond to multiple warnings. The case was set for small claims court in 2 weeks. Rachel folded the paper carefully and looked up. "Tell Daniels," she said calmly. "He just made a huge mistake." The officer shifted uneasily, suddenly unsure of the smirk, because what Daniels didn't know, what none of them knew, was that Rachel Carter wasn't just going to defend herself. She was going to tear him apart in court. Before submitting it, she CC'd it to the city council, the mayor's office, and an old law school friend who now worked at a regional watchdog group. Then she exhaled and hit send. It didn't take long for the retaliation to begin. The next Monday, a uniformed officer appeared at Paper Pros with a clipboard. "Routine fire inspection," he said flatly. Rachel looked around her spotless shop. "Funny, I passed my last inspection 2 months ago." "New initiative," he replied. "Citywide." That same week, a sanitation officer discovered improper trash sorting behind her store, a violation Rachel had never even heard of. A noise complaint followed after her monthly book club ran until 9:10 p.m., just 10 minutes past the posted ordinance limit. Each citation felt petty and yet unmistakably deliberate. Rachel knew exactly who was behind them. But the final straw came Thursday morning. She was walking to her car when she noticed a bright orange boot clamped to her rear wheel. She blinked at it, confused, then furious. A large sticker read, "Violation, court ordered hold." 2 officers stood nearby, one of them smirking. "Miss Carter?" one asked. "We have a court summons for you. Failure to comply with a municipal citation." Rachel took the paperwork without flinching. Her eyes scanned the page. It was from Officer Daniels himself. He'd filed a motion claiming she was obstructing a fire lane and had failed to respond to multiple warnings. The case was set for small claims court in 2 weeks. Rachel folded the paper carefully and looked up. "Tell Daniels," she said calmly. "He just made a huge mistake." The officer shifted uneasily, suddenly unsure of the smirk, because what Daniels didn't know, what none of them knew, was that Rachel Carter wasn't just going to defend herself. She was going to tear him apart in court. The courtroom buzzed with quiet whispers as Rachel walked through the double doors, heels clicking sharply against the polished floor. She wore a tailored navy blue suit, crisp white blouse, and a look of calm precision. She didn't glance at Officer Daniels, who sat at the plaintiff's table looking relaxed, arms casually slung over the back of his chair, like he was already celebrating. He didn't recognize what was coming. Small claims court wasn't glamorous. No jury, no cameras, just a judge, a bailiff, a clerk, and about 20 folding chairs that creaked every time someone shifted. But for Rachel, this was more than a civil hearing. It was an ambush, and Daniels had walked right into it. "Case number 2117B, Officer Matthew Daniels versus Rachel Carter," the clerk called out. Daniels straightened and stood with lazy confidence. Rachel remained still, reviewing her notes one last time. "Officer Daniels," the judge said, "you're bringing this case based on a citation issued for obstruction of a fire lane?" "Yes, Your Honor," Daniels said, loud and clear. "The defendant parked illegally in a red zone. When I attempted to address it, she became aggressive and non-compliant. I filed this suit after she refused to resolve the matter or respond to follow-up citations." Rachel almost laughed. Aggressive and non-compliant. The only thing she'd been aggressive with was her paper trail. "Miss Carter, your response?" the judge asked. Rachel rose smoothly. "Your Honor, not only is the citation false, but the plaintiff has a documented pattern of abusive enforcement, particularly targeting women. I've brought evidence, witness statements, and public records to prove it." Daniels gave a scoffing laugh. "Objection. She's making this personal." Rachel turned her head. "You made it personal when you targeted me for speaking up." The judge held up a hand. "Let's proceed in order." For the next 45 minutes, Rachel calmly, meticulously dismantled every piece of Daniels' claim. First, she showed photographs of the so-called fire lane, with timestamps and location data. The curb was yellow, not red, and clearly marked as a loading zone. Next, she introduced a letter from the city zoning office, confirming her section of the street had not been designated a fire lane in over 5 years. Then she pulled out a binder of complaint records, which she'd legally requested through public records law. Each one showed a similar situation: women fined unfairly, harassed, or subjected to multiple citations, always by Daniels. The judge flipped through the binder, eyebrows rising. And these complaints? They were never reviewed? Most were closed without follow-up, Rachel said. Many of the complainants never received a response. Daniels shifted in his chair, growing noticeably more tense. Then came the knockout punch. Rachel called her surprise witness. "Your Honor, I'd like to call Ms. Evelyn DeSoto to the stand." The courtroom doors opened, and a stately woman in her 60s walked in, gray-haired, glasses, and every bit the seasoned lawyer she was. Daniel's jaw visibly clenched. Rachel smiled. "Ms. DeSoto is my former supervisor. She also serves as an independent investigator for regional law enforcement misconduct." The judge allowed it. Under oath, Evelyn described her findings. Daniels had the highest rate of civilian complaints in the county, a trail of citations that disproportionately targeted small business owners, particularly women, and a history of retaliation following formal grievances. "Officer Daniels," she finished, "appears to have a pattern of using his authority to settle personal grievances, not enforce the law." The judge sat back in silence. Daniels stood abruptly. "This is a setup. She's weaponizing her legal background to paint me as some kind of criminal." Rachel stood too, voice steady. "I'm using facts to prove that you're abusing your badge. I didn't start this, Officer Daniels. You did. When you lied, intimidated, and retaliated against citizens who couldn't fight back." The judge raised a hand again. "That's enough. I've heard what I need to hear." A tense moment passed. Then the verdict came. "This case is dismissed. The citation is voided. Furthermore, I am forwarding this matter to the Police Oversight Committee and the city's legal counsel for full investigation into Officer Daniels' conduct. Court is adjourned." Rachel didn't grin. She didn't gloat. She simply gathered her binder, thanked the judge, and walked out of the courtroom without looking back. But the damage was done. Epilogue. Within weeks, the story broke in the local paper. "Bookstore owner exposes rogue cop in court," read the headline. Complaints flooded City Hall. Former victims came forward in droves. Daniels was suspended pending investigation, and by year's end, he was removed from the force entirely. Rachel never wanted the spotlight, but her quiet bravery had rippled through the town and changed it. Justice, she thought, wasn't about making noise. It was about making truth impossible to ignore.